This is Spain, the village where my father grew up, a place I've known since I was a toddler. As a child, I didn't think about Spain's wildlife, but I should have done, because my father loved nature and wrote poems about the creatures around him. In any case, I'm a townie, but I'm leaving the cities behind to discover what I've been missing all these years. I'm hoping to find that the animals of Spain are as wonderful as its people, as I travel this land from northernmost to southernmost tip. I've been told to expect some surprises. On this journey, I'd love to be able to spot some of this country's most exotic species. I've known the Spanish people all my life, and so I'll be particularly interested to see the interaction between man and animal, between Spaniards and their wildlife. I started this journey the day after I left Parliament. I exchanged the claustrophobic corridors of power for this grandiose landscape, and the exhaust fumes of London for this invigorating mountain air. Spain is twice the size of the United Kingdom, and with 20 million fewer people, there's a chance to visit some seriously wild places. This greenery, these jagged peaks, it makes you want to sing out loud. Sound of Music country? No. Despite the appearance of alpine scenery, I'm still in Spain. I should explain that I'm no natural history expert. Indeed, I thought I'd come here in search of the ocelot, but that's because I'd misremembered my briefing. In fact, I'm here to try and spot marmots. And marmots, like many of the creatures that I hope to encounter in my journey, are not things that most people associate with Spain. According to my guidebook, these Pyrenean marmots live in extended family groups. When it gets cold, the older males snuggle up to their younger siblings to keep them warm. Sweet. If I had to list my qualities, I couldn't in all honesty include patience. Observing delightful creatures like these marmots, I must be ready to lie in wait for long periods in desolate places where human beings rarely tread. Not the best way to start my new line as a wildlife buff. This is more like Hyde Park than the Pyrenees. Please, please, please go away. Unfortunately, my first attempt to lie in waiting for the marmot has been interrupted by an expedition of the Julie Andrews Appreciation Society. Maybe the late evening might provide more marmots and fewer marchers. For my second attempt at marmot spotting, I'm going to try these rocks. I've been told you sometimes just see them playing here. And the technique this time is not to leave the car. Apparently they're spooked by people walking, but if you stay in the car, maybe not. That's clearly not a marmot, you can tell by the bell. I suspect that with all this clanging going on from the cows, this is not an ideal moment to spot a marmot. I mean, there'd have to be deaf ones, I think, wouldn't they? Better not stop too long, they've got this vehicle surrounded. Clearly, I need to get further off the beaten track in search of yet more exotic animals. I venture forth my head protected by my trusty Panama, my mind unburdened by expertise. Spain's rarest vulture, the lammergeier. The Spanish call it quebrantahuesos, the bone breaker. They eat bones, and when they're too big, they smash them by dropping them from a great height. This must be one of the most extraordinary bird-watching spots in Europe, I should think. Bit of argy-bargy going on between these two. The lammergeier's wingspan reaches almost 3 meters. About 80% of the European population is in the Pyrenees, but that's only about 200 birds. They're on the endangered list, but Spanish conservationists are working hard and the numbers are on the increase. This is like being at an air show. He's going round and round and round. It's as though he knew that there were amateur bird spotters out today. Wants us to be sure that we get a really good look at him. No pun intended, but I feel rather uplifted by seeing the lammergeier. I would never have guessed that I could get so excited over a vulture. As I head west across northern Spain, the landscape becomes greener and woodier, and that offers a hiding place, even for a very large carnivore. Villages in the Cantabrian Mountains on the border between León and Asturias are sometimes visited by furry intruders who think it's time for a little something. At the scene of the crime, there are some very angry bees. The beekeepers take such raids in their stride. Well, getting government compensation helps. Every honey raid must be investigated. I'm with Teodoro, the aggrieved beekeeper, and Miguel, the government inspector. The beehive is down here, and the bear attacked last Friday. So now we're looking for traces of where the bear came from. The bear has obviously come down here, he says. The earth has been disturbed, and then the bear's come across the track. And yeah, you don't even have to be an expert to see he's gone down there, a huge gouge in the earth, down towards the hives. The bear does get stung, but of course they have thick skins, says Miguel, and they're so keen to get the honey. My God. You don't need to be Sherlock Holmes to know that this is a very, very clear marks. And here you can see the nails of a bear paw. There's no doubt about it, this was a bear raid. Entramos. In we go. Teodoro and I go in alone because, ironically, the bee inspector is allergic to bee stings. I'm wearing long johns just in case one of the little blighters gets inside my trousers. Well, Teodoro's pointing to all this. This was all knocked over by the bear. This happens quite a lot, he says. It's quite a frequent occurrence. Says I get pretty cross when it happens because the beehives are wrecked. Under the government subsidy scheme, Teodoro will receive compensation for the fact that his beehive has been wrecked by a bear. That's so that villagers don't go and take revenge on the bears or try trapping them or whatever. But he's only allowed to claim on each hive once in a year. So he marks them with a big spot, and that makes sure that he doesn't try to pull a fast one by claiming twice. So Teodoro is hoping that by rebuilding the hives, they may be viable again. Perdón. The poor bear must suffer hundreds of stings for the pleasure that I'm about to enjoy. This is my Winnie the Pooh moment.
Está buena, ¿eh?
Muy buena.
Seguramente al oso le supo igual. Sí, buena. Por eso...
He says the bear liked it too, obviously. It tasted as good to him as it does to me. It's very, very nice. Very
No,
good.
yo nunca lo vi.
Nunca?
No. En el monte nunca
Amazing,
lo vi.
amazing. I mean,
Nunca lo vi.
the bears are so close that they attack his beehive. He sees traces of the bear, but he says he's never actually seen a bear. A man who lives here surrounded by bears, he's never seen a bear. Nunca lo vi.
El oso es muy discreto. Él sí puede pasar desapercibido.
The bear is a very discreet animal, and it keeps itself well hidden away. These shy honey lovers are the descendants of brown bears that once inhabited the whole of Europe, including the British Isles. Until now, the only Spanish bears that have been filmed are in captivity. These two are orphans, taken into care after their parents were shot by hunters. After years of decline, the bear numbers are now on the increase. I'm now going to try and see wild bear. I'll need the help of local expertise. I'm privileged. Guillermo Palomero and his rangers usually keep the bear's location a closely guarded secret. We're looking at 3 or 4 hillsides looking for bear, and I was asking how on earth you could narrow down the search. Well, they use the binoculars first, and then they move in with the telescope if they think they've seen something. But also they know a lot about the habitat. They know what the bears are looking for by way of nourishment at the different times of year, whether they're looking for fruits in the summer or dried fruits, acorns in the winter. So they're being very selective. They're looking at the places where they know the bears are going to be feeding. No sightings this morning, though. I'm beginning to learn that spotting wildlife is a dawn and dusk affair. Once again, Guillermo and I have been up at first light. One of his spotters out on the hills has seen 2 male bears. They're about 1 kilometre away, so we're going to have to see them through the telescope. But it's worth it. How do they find these bears? Well, I can't
Una
see.
piedra.
There's a stone. Yeah. La piedra la veo, sí.
Una piedra blanca.
Sí, I can see the white
Justo
stone.
ahí, un bulto negro.
A black shape next to the white stone. Oh my god. Okay, I've seen it.
¿Sí?
That is...
Que no se mueve, está quieto, ¿eh?
It's just moved, it has just moved. No wonder these bears live in peace, because, I mean, this is about as close as we get to them. Wow. How do they ever see these bears? They're just so far away. It just tells you how big these mountains are and how remote. That huge animal is just so tiny and so well hidden. I mean, even those complete contrast to the white rocks where he's lying. I hadn't spotted him, I'd taken him for a bit of shadow. This is a very rare sighting. There are only 120 of these in the whole range of mountains, which goes pretty much across the top of Spain. And no wonder many local people never see them, because it's a real effort. Guillermo says this is a male I'm looking at, and his team have seen a second male on the mountain. Now this is a bit unusual, because yesterday they were saying that when it gets hot like this, the males tend to become nocturnal. So the explanation, says Guillermo, is that there's a female bear close by and she's on heat. So as usual, extraordinary male behaviour is explained by sex. The scrumptious object of their desire wasn't far away. Our second cameraman was able to film the female bear foraging and catching on the wind that unmistakable scent of ursine testosterone. These two males both have eyes on the same girl. These bears move through the terrain as though it were nothing. Easy, slow gait. Oh dear, we're going to lose our bear in the cloud in a moment. He's come all the way down the slope into the cloud line. And my guess is that's going to be the last I see of him. And whatever happened next in this steamy triangle of love was veiled by cloud. Some people might think that seeing a bear at this tremendous distance, is not much good. But actually, to me, it kind of emphasizes what a privilege it is to see this creature. This is as close as we can get. This is as close as we should get. Because if man were over there, right up close and observing this bear, there wouldn't be any bears anymore. So it's fine by me. Now, I don't want you to think me obsessed or anything, but I'm thinking about vultures again. These giant birds, which are so ungainly on the ground, wheel languorously above the valley floor, on the lookout for tasty carrion. Man has always envied birds their ability to fly, and when I see these huge creatures effortlessly floating on columns of air, my craving for flight becomes intense. Oh, for the wings of a vulture!
Michael, run. Run forward, run. Okay. Hard as you can. Hard as you can. Oh. That's good, run. Keep running.
So we're airborne.
Let
me introduce my pilot, Steve Ham. How are you?
Not too bad.
So Steve, how come we're up here? What keeps us up here?
Well, the air flowing over the top of our wing creating lift, and to stay in the air we need to fly in thermals. We can fly in thermals or ridge lift. So we're flying away from the mountain at the moment because there's not much ridge lift on there, moving out into the plains to search for one of these elusive thermals.
We're looking for hot air rising.
Yeah, we're looking for hot air rising. A good way to spot the thermals is to look out for vultures. So we're keeping our eyes peeled. If we see any vultures wheeling upwards, then we'll go and join them.
Because the birds are doing the same as we are.
Yeah, absolutely. Their priority is to get high, to be able to glide a long way, to be able to forage throughout the day. And we use exactly the same principles as they do.
But they do it a good deal better than we do.
If we find some thermals, we'll be able to climb right next to them. But when they leave us on the glide, then they'll probably leave us behind quite quickly.
And why is this such good country for vultures anyway?
Well, it's a mixture of the topography and the climate. Now we've got a 300-kilometre chain of mountains which sets up superb soaring conditions. And of course there's a fair bit of sunshine in this country.
Well, let's see if we can get amongst them.
Okay.
Over to you, Skipper.
Rightio.
On cloudy days like today, vultures manage to get lift. Not so the Portillo bird.
There's a very weak thermal.
Yeah.
And our combined weight isn't helping too much.
No, I'm afraid I had too good a breakfast this morning.
Yeah, because we're flying the aerial equivalent of a truck, there's we've got less chance.
My failure reminded me of that Monty Python line about a flying sheep. It don't so much fly as plummet. Like Icarus, I was guilty of hubris in seeking to fly. But I've not quite given up on my vulture quest yet. So I've come up with another cunning plan. This one a little less ambitious. No, that's not a vulture. Aha, patience brings its rewards.
This is a really macabre scene. It's like something from a horror movie.
huge collection of vultures. It's a great deal easier to get near to them on the ground than it was in the air. And here we've got Egyptian vultures, griffon vultures, and the big bruisers are the black vultures. Oh, and a few kites and a couple of storks as well. The Spanish farmers used traditionally to put the carcasses of their sheep and goats out on the hillside for the vultures to eat. But they're not allowed to do that anymore. EU regulations. But here on this farm, the farmer's allowed to put out the waste products of pig. And he does it on a regular basis. And the vultures now know when it's feeding day. It's today. This fearsome jostling and picking over the bones of carrion takes me right back to the House of Commons. The snowy peaks are behind me as I head towards central Spain. On these plains, hundreds of years ago, my father's ancestors planted oaks. The acorns are fed to the famous blackleg pigs, from whom we get the yummiest ham you've ever tasted. But I must stick to wildlife. Unlike lammergeiers and bears, storks are one species you can't avoid in Spain. Their numbers slumped to under 7,000 in the 1980s, but because they're now protected, the population has bounced back to well over 30,000. Each spring they arrive from Africa to mate and raise their young. In a country where bulls get stabbed by men in sparkly costumes, storks are treated rather better. They've rights. Alongside a busy main road, 59 posts bearing 59 storks' nests. The birds used to live in a derelict house behind me. They'd taken it over. But when developers sought planning permission to build a hotel here, the regional government insisted that they provide a post for every nest that was being demolished. A man-made city of storks. Spanish sparrows have also availed themselves of the new facilities. Conservation didn't used to feature high on the Spanish agenda. This tender-hearted concern to protect storks' dwellings would have been inconceivable when I used to visit as a child. Spain's changing in other ways too. The ancient cities are growing apace. The old and the picturesque jostles with the brash and the new. I'm headed for Extremadura. It means the extremity, a place that was hard to reach. Located against the border with Portugal, it produces delicious cheeses. Sorry, no more mentions of food, I promise. But a tip, if you want to visit Extremadura, you'd better hurry. With so many new roads, this delightful region can't remain isolated for long. Of course, sometimes the changes that man makes produce benefits to wildlife, like these lakes that were dug by the Romans. This landscape of oaks and pasture supports Europe's greatest variety of bird types. The land echoes with the mating calls of the hoopoe. My living bird guide is Jose Maria Benitez.
I can't do that at all.
Mira, una bobilla.
There's a...
Se ha posado un poquito más adelante.
There's a hoopoe?
The hoopoe chick offers its open mouth to its parent. Jose Maria tells me that if you get too close, it would turn around and repel you with a wet blast from its bottom.
En el parque observada hay casi 200 especies. Lo que ocurre que nidificante hay 98 especies.
So that in the park there are 98 varieties that nest here,
Sí.
and 200 that have been seen altogether.
Phenomenal economic transformation. Here amongst the oak trees, the traditional pastoral life continues. It's time for another sun-drenched lesson in naturalist fieldcraft. Jose Maria has great expectations of these modest twigs. Bee-eaters are some of the last spring migrants from Africa. They've chosen these abandoned earthworks to select their partners and breed. Bee-eaters by name, bee-eaters by nature.
This is matter that the bee-eater regurgitates, and it's all the little bits of insect that it doesn't digest. And what you can see there is mainly bee. They really are bee-eaters.
The soft earth pushed up alongside the disused quarry makes it easy for them to tunnel out their nests. It's amazing, really, that this scar which has been left by man on the landscape is really rather horrid, unfinished mud bank. Serves as such a beautiful nesting place for the bee-eaters and creates this fantastic colony.
Pues debe de haber alrededor entre 50 y 60 parejas este año.
50 or 60 pairs in this colony.
Tamaño medio. Hay colonias mucho más grandes de abejaruco.
And this is only a medium-sized colony. Fantastic colours. It's rather exotic for...
La procedencia es africana.
Yeah, they're from Africa. They come here from the middle of March onwards. Y se quedan hasta?
Hasta mediados de septiembre.
And there's... Really brilliant idea about the branch. They're using it really for everything.
Porque la están utilizando
He
para
said-
las cópulas, se posan ahí.
He says my branch will have been responsible for creating a whole new generation of bee-eaters because they're using it to mate on. No need to book into a hotel when they've got a branch like that.
Hotel para abejarucos de Michael.
It then dawned on me that humans not only fortuitously provide the shelter, but also inadvertently lay on the food.
Sí.
It's incredible. There is a beehive.
Les han puesto el buffet en la puerta de casa para que coman.
Beehive, he says, is like a buffet spread out for the bee-eaters. There's a beehive just there. Ready supply of food. So the poor old Spanish bee, when it's not being clobbered by a bear, they're being picked off one by the bee-eaters. Being a Spanish bee is really very, very hazardous. It's such a joy to travel through this ancient, man-made landscape, which in springtime is carpeted with wildflowers. As I journey southeastwards, the land becomes parched and dry. Around Anduja are large hunting estates, which apart from deer, harbour an animal unique to the Iberian Peninsula. I now face one of my biggest challenges, which is to find the Iberian lynx. El Gato Grande, Spain's endemic big cat. And it's a problem because the animal is shy and I hear mainly nocturnal. And this is big country, which gives it plenty of opportunity to hide. Needle in a haystack? Or what? Once again, I'm going to need to get local assistance, and I'm going straight to the top. This is the country house of the aristocrat and takeaway pizza magnate Javier Gisbert. Javier protects the lynx. It kills off vermin like foxes, and it doesn't need a pack of hounds to help it.
Javier, how many Iberian lynx are there in Spain now?
In Spain, between 120, 140. In Spain and in the world.
Only 120 or 140?
Yes, yes.
So you have about 1/5 of the world's population of Iberian lynx.
Something like that, yes.
Huge responsibility.
Yes, it is.
Javier, how often do you actually see a lynx?
20, 25 times a year.
A year?
More or less, yeah.
Oh, okay. So we do have some chance of seeing one today.
It's not easy.
No.
It's not easy.
And if you see one, what does it tend to do? Does it run away?
It depends. Sometimes they run away,
Yeah.
or sometimes they, perhaps, or usual, they sit down,
Yes.
they look at you.
Yes.
They don't feel afraid
No.
from nothing, because nothing hurts them.
They are the kings.
Yes.
So it's just a question of
Luck.
and sitting here a long time, maybe.
More than one day.
Javier was right. It did turn out to be more than one day.
I'm going to have to become somewhat nocturnal myself. So I'll be back here early in the morning, and then I'll have a siesta.
Our third morning proved to be just as fruitless, with the usual false alarms. While I took a rest, Javier and his friend Fernando persisted. Finding me a lynx was becoming a matter of pride for this Spanish grandee. Javier's just called. Says get down there as quick as possible. He's got the lynx in sight. Now this is strange because until now we've been going out at dawn and dusk to look for the lynx. Now it's the very heat of the day, very strong sunshine. He says he's got the lynx there lying right in front of him. This is the first time that Javier's seen the lynx since I've been with him, so obviously my hopes are really up. The trouble is it takes me about 15 minutes to get down to where he is, and 15 minutes is a long time, so I'm just hoping that the lynx will still be there and that we'll see him in broad daylight. Javier is in position by a sleeping lynx. He's sitting down by a tree. I'm going to see how close we can get to this lynx without waking it up. There's a stone there, and there's some scrub. It was in the scrub. It's moved out of the scrub. We're not quite sure where it is now. And the birds are no longer making a noise, which is a bad sign, because the birds usually sort of irritate the lynx. So no bird song is not a good sign. It was then that we heard the telltale alarm calls from the magpies. I've seen it. It's fine. Just like my first view of a lynx. That was a pretty good view for me. It was looking at me face on. For the first time I could see the little pointed hairs on its ears. It's looking at me again. It stopped. This lynx is well known to Javier. It's a female of 3 or 4 years, which he's named Lupe. We then became aware that there was another lynx nearby.
Because the mother is... Yes. Right.
Lupe's 1-year-old cub, now grown and independent.
But it's a nice animal, yeah. Beautiful. And it's fat, it's strong.
It's a good looking animal.
And what about the color? You see the color?
Yeah, lovely. Quite dark. Quite
Yes,
dark.
dark.
And actually, in the sunshine, not very well disguised.
Sorry.
In the sunshine, it's
Yes.
not really camouflage. It's very
Yes.
visible in the sunshine.
So, can we try to see the small one?
Try to find the cub.
Yes. Okay.
I was witnessing a chance encounter between mother and son, two members of the most endangered cat species on the planet. It wasn't quite clear who was on whose territory, but relations seemed cordial enough. These are the aristocrats of animals who spurn the chattering classes.
We've had tremendous sightings all day.
We have luck.
No, your skill.
Yes.
Your skill. Fantastic day. Qué bueno, eh?
The lynx is in decline in other parts of Spain, but here with a more abundant supply of rabbits and enlightened landowners, it seems to be prospering. With patience, luck, and expert help, I've been able to view a creature that is noble and rare and quintessentially Spanish. Now I must hurry on to catch an unmissable event. It's a day's drive west towards the Atlantic coast, crossing the plains of the arid south, made drier by the worst drought on record. I'm here in good time. This wildlife encounter depends on the phase of the moon. The full moons of spring and summer are an auspicious time for hundreds of fishermen who gather along the coast south of Cadiz for the most spectacular event in their calendar. To trap the hugest fish, they use an ancient method that bears the Arab name Almadraba. With the full moon come the highest tides, and with the tides come migrating tuna. Each year they attempt to enter the Mediterranean through the Straits of Gibraltar. Many thousands of them. But it's another animal that has brought me to this coast at this time. An animal that's also preparing to trap the tuna. By 7:30, I could see ready and waiting. I too needed to get in position. Mario and his crew want to find me one of Spain's top mammalian predators, the killer whale or orca.
Here he is! Oh, fantastic! Isn't that fantastic? Here. Dark shape. Here it comes. Oh, that's so beautiful. Orca again. Second visit to the surface. That time we get a view of the tail. Oh, it's so close now. Beautiful. In the half hour since we first saw the killer whale, who's still here just in front of the boat, he has moved quite a lot nearer to the coast, which is exactly where the fishermen are waiting for them. Killer whales have a voracious appetite for tuna. This is something quite different. We're seeing other killer whales coming in from other directions. It seems that somehow one has signaled to the other, probably that there are tuna here, and they're coming in, they're closing in on the killing ground. Locals believe that man and orca work together. The orcas drive the tuna towards the Almadrava, and the nets help the orca to corner the fish. Since the days of the Phoenicians 3,000 years ago, fishermen have scanned the horizon for the orca's dorsal fin as the signal that tuna were on the move. The Romans fed their legions on the enormous catches. Sadly, industrial fishing elsewhere is now reducing tuna numbers and threatening the historic Almadrava. Today, however, they could celebrate a decent haul. This has been a magical day. We spent all day seeing the orcas, and I've seen them right close up. I could almost touch the orcas in the water. And we were able to see the colours, we saw the belly, and then there came this very interesting moment when the orcas started to race with the coming of the change of the tide. They were moving their ground. They'd spent all day waiting for the tuna, and at the end of the day, they moved their ground to see if they could find them somewhere else. What spectacular things we've seen. Things that Mario had never seen in a lifetime of watching killer whales. It's been fantastic. From July onwards, storks from across Spain and Europe mass near the coast for their migration back to Africa. Another sign of changing times. The wind turbines may combat global warming, but the blades can scythe down migrating birds. If only Don Quixote were around today. These wetlands are about a mile from the Spanish coast, and there are hundreds of storks that have arrived here. And I'm told that they'll wait until they get the right thermal current to lift them, to help them on the next stage of their migration across the narrow stretch of water that separates Europe from Africa. It's not easy for heavy birds like storks. As autumn approaches, the ground must heat up enough to provide them with lift, and they need a strong wind blowing towards Africa. Once they've caught the thermal, they don't need to do much flapping. They simply corkscrew higher and higher. Once they've reached their cruising height, they can move mighty fast. It looks like some of the storks are gaining height. If I'm going to catch them at the coast, I'm going to have to hurry. I make it in time to watch the migrants cross the Straits of Gibraltar to Morocco. I nearly miss them. It's Twitcher's heaven. I can still just about see them. They're quite spread out now in a long, thin line, though there's a big concentration, a big bunch at the back. And they're just approaching that cape, the tip of Morocco. And that's going to be my last view of them, because in a few moments they'll have made it safely to Africa.
It's a crossing of 14 kilometers starting from here in Tarifa. 350 species of bird choose this narrowest point between the two continents. My father was once moved to write a poem about the eagles that he used to watch in his youth. Donde el sol las imanta y me deslumbra, resaltadas de excelsos roquedales, sobrevuelan dos águilas caudales, oteando los valles en penumbra. My father was exiled as a young man. The memory of his country's landscape and nature helped to sustain him during his long banishment. His poem is a eulogy to nature's permanence and nobility. Recently, rapid economic development has threatened that permanence. But on this journey, I've been impressed by the respect that many Spaniards feel for the wealth and variety of Spain's wild animals. I'm like a prodigal son who's returned to a magnificent feast. That's Africa, and I'm standing at the southernmost tip of Europe. This journey has been wonderfully different for me. I've felt really excited about seeing bear and lynx and orca, and really privileged too. And I've enjoyed meeting people who are so enthusiastic about Spanish wildlife and proud of it, and rightly so. I wish I got into this stuff earlier. Anyway, this is Land's End, and this is my journey's end.
From her first home, a pub in London's King's Cross, to the stylish city of Milan, the search for the identity of a mysterious woman takes Sheila Hancock on an amazing journey. Who do you think you are in 10 minutes? Before that, we're getting close up to Britain's seals in just a moment here on BBC Two.